There's possibly a slight whiff of hope going around right now among some Star Trek fans, specifically following the completion of the merger between Paramount and Skydance. There's a belief that Skydance could potentially clear house when it comes to Star Trek and move on from the secret hideout vision of the franchise to something hopefully better. Now, any projects currently in production will be finished, most likely. So, Strange New Worlds is going to finish its 5 seasons, and we're still going to get Starfleet Academy, unfortunately. But one wonders how long that will last. But when the secret hideout deal comes to an end, what will Skydance's plans for Star Trek be? Now, before you get your hopes up that Skydance are going to turn everything around for Star Trek, keep in mind Skydance were one of the production companies involved in both Star Trek Into Darkness and Star Trek Beyond, alongside Paramount and Bad Robot. On that subject, I wanted to have a look at this article from Collider. Star Trek star claims Paramount merger will lead to a new Kelvin movie. It's been 9 years since Star Trek Beyond hit theaters, and there are still no more Star Trek movies on the long-range scanners, even as the franchise returned to the small screen. However, Simon Pegg, who starred as Montgomery Scott in all 3 of the J.J. Abrams-led big-screen reboot films, thinks that's about to change with the recent acquisition of Paramount by Skydance. He discussed the situation at a panel at the Star Trek Las Vegas Star Trek Convention in Las Vegas this week. Pegg noted that David Ellison, the chairman of the new media conglomerate, is a big Star Trek fan and knows he cares about the series. Pegg personally would love it. Despite the tragic death of Anton Yelkin, who starred as Pavel Chekhov in the films, I love those guys, and despite how we had a tragedy in our group, which was extremely painful, it would be wonderful to come together again. JJ has always said that there are scripts being developed and this and that, and I think it's about time. It would be great to see us 10 years after the 5-year mission where we are. And you see, this might very well be the case. Skydance were a part of Into Darkness and Beyond, and they might very well want to produce another Kelvin timeline movie, which I sincerely hope does not happen because I didn't like those movies. And the J.J. Abrams Kelvin films were the beginning of the franchise downfall and the tonal and visual transformation that led us to the absolute crud we have now. So Star Trek's decline began with those Kelvin movies, and so getting another one would not be a step in the right direction, in my opinion. But there is talk of something more interesting. This article is from trekmovie.com. It reads, exclusive, Scott Bakula eyeing Star Trek return in President Archer series pitch from Enterprise producer. So the article includes an exclusive interview with Star Trek Enterprise writer and producer Mike Sussman. Ahead of his appearance on Trek Movies' Does Canon Matter, and if so, when? Panel on Saturday at the Star Trek Las Vegas Trek to Vegas convention, Sussman spoke exclusively with Trek Movie about a series concept he has been developing with Scott Bakula over the last couple of years. Bakula himself will also be at STLV for a Sunday mainstage panel in a rare convention appearance. According to Sussman, the idea of Bakula returning to the franchise began a few years ago while Star Trek Picard was streaming on Paramount+. That show wrapped up in 2023 under showrunner Terry Matalas, himself a veteran of Star Trek Enterprise and a friend of Sussman. At that time, in an email exchange with Bakula, Sussman first joked, "How soon are we going to see Star Trek Archer on Paramount+?" Then quickly realized he actually had an idea based on some seeds planted 2 decades before in Enterprise, and Bakula was intrigued. He immediately glommed onto it, Sussman tells Trek Movie. The seed was based on the last episode Sussman wrote for the franchise, In a Mirror Darkly Part 2, from late in the show's 4th season. That episode was set in the Mirror Universe and featured Bakula playing Archer's Mirror Universe doppelganger, who, at one point, had access to a Starfleet database from the future on board the USS Defiant. So I'm not going to read the whole article. Both articles, incidentally, are linked below in the description box for you to check out. I'm just going to skip ahead in this article to this particular paragraph here. The key is that on Enterprise, Sussman established that Archer, after retiring as an admiral, left Starfleet to get into politics and eventually rose to president of the United Federation of Planets. So yeah, the Archer series might be all right, actually. I'm reasonably intrigued by that. We never found out what happened to Jonathan Archer in his latter years, and certainly Enterprise was a show that I grew to love, and I really wish it had had a fifth season. It deserved a fifth season. It was just getting good, seasons 3 and 4, and I think it ended poorly, unfortunately, with a really bad series finale. These Are the Voyages. Continuing that era of Trek, the 22nd century era, and discovering what happened to the Enterprise crew, the NX-01 crew. I'd love to see that happen in some sort of mini-series capacity. I'd also love if they retconned Trip's death somehow and made it so that he didn't die. There is some non-canonical continuations, novels that were written that explain that, well, actually, Trip didn't really die, and what happened in that episode, there was more going on there. So I would highly recommend on that subject that you check out a novel called Star Trek Enterprise, The Good That Men Do, which was written by Michael A. Martin and Andy Mangels. But of course, it's all about how something like this would be handled, how they would go about making an Archer series. I wouldn't want such a show to get the Star Trek Picard treatment, right? We need to see an optimistic vision of the future for Star Trek. And I think a true Birth of the Federation series could be a great setting for Star Trek stories with a President Archer. But like I say, I would sound a note of caution when it comes to the Skydance merger. We simply don't know at this point what that company's approach is to Star Trek, what it's going to be. And like I say, they were involved in 2 of the 3 Kelvin timeline films. I just really hope we don't get any more of those movies. So let's see what decisions they make. But what do you think about this? Would you be interested in an Archer series? And finally, is there any of you who are even interested in another Kelvin timeline film? Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell to be notified of future updates on the channel, of course. Hit that like button, share this video out there. Take care. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.